While the market is saturated with ARM-based tablets of all kinds, if you want an x86-based one that's not only powerful but feature-rich, and that will of course run every Windows game and app out there, then the Minis Forum V3 is one of the few options out there, if not the only one, that will deliver. And if you want one that has an 8-core AMD Ryzen CPU with a powerful Radeon GPU, then this really is your only option right now in this segment. The Minis Forum V3 is truly a tablet for PC enthusiasts, and it's discounted at the time of making this video for a limited time, so you'll want to check this one out ASAP. Let's put it through its paces, but first a message from today's sponsor. Black Friday has been extended at urcdkeys.com. If you need a Windows or Office key, you should get it from urcdkeys.com. Why? If you buy a Windows key directly from Microsoft, you'll pay around $150 depending on your region, and that's for a home edition license. But if you buy an OEM key from urcdkeys.com, you will only have to pay $21.86 at the time of making this video if you use my coupon code C25, and that's for Windows 11 Pro. These keys work globally and you'll get them within minutes. You can pay with a credit card or with PayPal. After purchasing, go to your purchased orders page and copy the key, and then on your Windows 11 install, type in the search activate and enter your key, the appropriate field, and click activate. That's it, your Windows is activated and you can change your wallpaper and customize Windows and all that. You can also get Office 2021 Professional Plus at less than half the price with my coupon code C25. Check the links in the video description for your cheap OEM Windows keys today. Unboxing the Minis Forum V3 reveals a solid tablet with an all-metal unibody construction. This is definitely not a tablet that you give to your kids to watch Baby Shark on loop. This is a serious machine for serious business, like playing Cyberpunk 2077 on the go. Minis Forum sent me this unit to check out, but they have no say on what I say about it. So my review is based on my own experience with the device over the last month or so, with no input from the manufacturer. This is not a paid review. The Minis Forum V3 comes installed with Windows 11 Pro, and you'll have to log in with a Microsoft account if you set it up with the Wi-Fi on, but there are ways to circumvent that if you keep the Wi-Fi off. Do a Google search and you'll easily find how to set this up without a Microsoft account, if that's your preference. The aforementioned AMD CPU is the Ryzen 7 8840U with 8 cores and 16 threads, with a base clock of 3.3 GHz and a boost of 5.1 GHz, so this is definitely a powerful CPU for this type of device. The GPU is the RDNA 3 based 780M, so this is integrated into the SoC and features 12 compute units running at 2700 MHz. You will struggle to find a tablet out there with an SoC of this caliber at this price range for sure. There's also a dedicated NPU that processes up to 16 TOPS, so together with the CPU that's a total of 38 TOPS, which is just shy of the Copilot Plus spec that Microsoft requires in Windows 11, so that would be 40 TOPS, but I doubt anyone cares about that, at least for now. The display is a 14-inch 2560 by 1600 IPS LCD running at 165 Hz with VRR, so it supports FreeSync of course, since internally there's that 78M GPU, and you can use this vertically in any 16 by 10 resolution, keeping the same refresh rate, and can also use it in 16 by 9 mode if you are using apps that don't scale well to 16 by 10. Once you've been spoiled by OLED displays, an IPS screen is obviously a downgrade, but as far as Windows tablets go, or most tablets out there, this is one of the best IPS screens I've used. The contrast is fantastic thanks to the super bright screen, and the color representation is excellent. It's only a shame that the panel has one of those anti-glare coatings, which I found to lower the perceived image quality and contrast compared to a glossy surface at least, but I know that most people prefer these matte displays, so I'm in the minority here. At 500 nits, admit, it's very bright, like I said, and the colors are nice and vibrant, and it's a joy to use, even just doing desktop stuff with that 165Hz refresh rate. It supports up to 10-point touch and can be used with a capacitive stylus, which is not included. You can buy one separately from the Minis Forum website if you want one, or use one of the many active pens out there that support the MPP2 protocol. There are games that you can run on this device that will take advantage of the 165Hz display, like Hades 2, but even beyond gaming, this high refresh rate really elevates the experience in general. Now, the V3 is marketed as a 3-in-1 device, and the tablet does also feature a DisplayPort-in video input port, so in addition to being able to use it as a tablet or as a laptop with a magnetic keyboard, you can use the V3 also as an external display by connecting it to your main PC, for instance, or to any device with DisplayPort out, like the mini PC where you keep your retro games and emulators, or even to your phone or a games console. So for instance, if you're traveling and are taking this tablet anyway, it can double as a display for a console or some other device you are taking with you. The tablet features 4 speakers that sound great considering their size, so you get 2 speakers on each side in landscape mode, which does mean that in portrait mode the speakers will be on the top and bottom, obviously, which was not something that bothered me. As far as cooling is concerned, there are 2 4mm fans on the back of the unit, which stay quiet even under load, and the hot air is exhausted through these vents on the top of the unit. The internal fans are connected to a system of 1mm thin heat pipes, really well engineered, and the system can run continuously with the SoC set to 28 watts without issues. As far as overclocking, you can go into the BIOS to up the power limit, but at 28 watts I feel like that's going to be your sweet spot for this machine, and it never ran above 81 degrees Celsius, even in this performance mode. There's a handy app from Minis Forum that comes pre-installed with the device where you can quickly set your power profile among other things, although I found that Windows 11 had a tendency to mess with things without telling you. We can see that the included SSD is running at the Gen 4 practical speeds, so it's using the PCIe lanes, at least judging by Crystal Mark 8.05. The V3 supports up to a 2TB SSD, and as far as RAM is concerned, it supports up to 32GB, which is what this unit is equipped with, although the included SSD is the 1TB option. The RAM is LPDDR5 and is running at 6400 MHz, so really no compromises here, especially considering the price. The device has a 50-watt-hour battery with fast charging at 65 watts, and there's no power brick like you typically find in a laptop. It works and charges with just a standard phone charger. While playing a YouTube video, the unit drew around 8 watts, and while gaming, it will draw the full 28 watts. So if you set the V3 to the 15-watt mode, you'll get 6 hours of YouTube playback, and that will be a fairly common use case. If you are browsing the web and doing some work on Google Docs, for example, then in this Echo mode, you'll get about 4 hours of use on battery alone. While gaming, the battery life will depend on what mode you have set it to. At the 15-watt mode, you'll get almost 2 hours of battery life while gaming. At 18 watts, you'll get about 1 hour and 30 minutes roughly, depending on how intensive the game is. And on the performance mode, so the 28-watt mode, the battery will last you about 1 hour. To change between performance modes, you can use the pre-installed Minis Forum app, as I mentioned earlier, although I did find it reluctant to change back from power balance or power save modes to the power premium mode when the unit was not plugged into power. There seems to be an issue with the Windows 11 power modes, but I'm not 100% sure. In my testing, the SoC did seem to be hamstrung by the OS in CPU-focused workloads, especially multi-threaded, so perhaps that's something that Microsoft will address in a future update. Because you have fast charging, it takes 1 hour and 40 minutes to fully charge, assuming you are using a 65-watt PD adapter like the one included. Remember, despite what the specs might suggest, this is still a tablet, so there's no battery brick like in most laptops. The V3 measures at 318mm by 213.8mm, is 9.8mm thick, and weighs 930 grams, so definitely hefty. For those of you in the US of A, in American units, that's 200 barrels of bourbon by 1/5 of an NBA player's foot, by 1/4 of a monster truck tire radius divided by the length of 2 bald eagles' combined wingspan. Oh, and alone, it's 2/3 of an adult fingernail thick, and it weighs 1/3 of a 2-month-old Texan baby. By the way, feel free to join the rest of the world any day now in using the official measuring units that are used outside of mental institutions, also known as the metric system. The V3 has an all-metal build with a magnesium alloy, which feels very premium, and the bezels are wide enough that you can grab the tablet without accidentally touching something on the display. The V3 doesn't flex, unless when it comes to boasting about its fantastic specs. It feels very sturdy with nice rounded corners and chamfered edges, and the V3 has a gyroscope and a G sensor, so it will rotate the screen and will work with mobile apps that require these features. On the right side of the device, when using it in landscape mode, that is, you get a power button that has a fingerprint sensor, a power LED, and 2 USB 4 ports. So these are what you'll use to charge the device, and you can also plug in an external GPU to this machine via these ports. On the left side, you have the V-Link input to connect DisplayPort devices if you want to use the V3 as a monitor, and also an SD card slot, which I really appreciate, a volume button that's clicky, which I also appreciate, and a 3.5mm audio jack. The device supports Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3, so all-round fantastic I/O with features that you don't typically find in convertible devices. The magnetic keyboard is great, and both the materials and the keys feel better to me than the Microsoft Surface ones. These chiclet keys have a slight resistance, so they only actuate when you press them with intent. They're great if you're a typist of some variety. The trackpad is good, but not the best I've used. It's not too wide and it's very responsive, but I would have preferred a material with less resistance, especially when you press and hold to move windows around. It's not as bad as on most Windows laptops, but it's not as good as the ones you'd find in a MacBook, for instance. I also appreciate the fact that there's an option to buy the keyboard with the European layout, as you get a properly shaped ISO enter key. The magnetic stand is accent, and it feels very sturdy and solid, and is not wobbly at all. Very premium feeling and consistent with the keyboard using the same materials. And by the way, this is the way I would recommend folding it, so it doesn't block the intake fans. A bit of a design oversight here from Minis Forum, I think, as most people are used to folding these stands from the bottom up, which in this case, like I said, will cover the fan ventilation. Once you get used to folding it the other way around, it's no biggie. The stand is not as sophisticated as the ones on Surface tablets, but it's definitely usable and very solid feeling and durable, and I really like that it will hold the tablet upright in any angle you set it at, which is what really matters in the end. Like I said earlier, you can go into the BIOS of this device by pressing delete on boot, but you need an external keyboard for that, and you can increase the power limit there in the BIOS beyond the suggested specs, but I'll be using it at the recommended 28 watts for the following tests. So again, that's the mode that Minis Forum calls Power Premium. One thing I noticed was that regardless of what profile you choose in the Minis Forum app, as soon as you unplug the device, Windows will automatically set the power plan back to balance, which is really annoying. So that's another weird issue related to the power plans that needs to be improved. But I suspect that's more on Microsoft than on Minis Forum here, knowing how unpredictable Windows 11 can be. I'm not a huge fan of Geekbench, but since you might be looking at other products where Geekbench is used as a synthetic benchmark for testing, I'll include it here. In Geekbench, the single-core score was 2,556, which is in line with what this CPU should be able to do, but the multi-core score was a bit lower than I expected, at 9,675 points. By no means a bad score, especially for a tablet, but I think this multi-core score should be in the 11,000 range, so it's possible that the whole Windows power plan is doing its shenanigans here. Firestrike 1.1, on the other hand, exceeded what you'd normally see in a device with these specs or equivalent, with 7,327 points overall, showing how performant the 7080M GPU is. TimeSpy got a bit lower than expected at 2900. It should be around the 3100 range, and it's the CPU score here that's lower than expected. It should be closer to 9000. So I think there's definitely something going on with the power plan in Windows that's restricting the CPU performance a little bit. Nothing major, but if you're like me, you want to extract as much performance out of the device as possible. Cyberpunk 2077, being GPU bound, ran great on this machine at 1080p low settings, hovering around the 45 to 60 FPS depending on the area of the game, and that's without frame generation on. So with frame gen, you could easily run this at over 60 FPS and even crank up the graphics. I also tested Hades 2, which has an uncapped frame rate, to see if we can take advantage of the high refresh rate, and the experience is fantastic. The 2D graphics look so good on this display, and the high refresh rate really enhances the experience. Overall, I'm super impressed with this tablet from Minis Forum. This is a proper PC enthusiast grade product with really high quality build, fantastic component selection with the AMD CPU and GPU combo, no jank software pre-installed, and I did run Malwarebytes to see if there was any malware installed from factory, which there wasn't. Great customization options with the Minis Forum Control Center app, and a proper full Windows experience with support for all your favorite x86 programs and games. I can wholeheartedly recommend this tablet, especially if you are a PC enthusiast like me who's generally left unimpressed by most mobile devices out there, considering what they cost. And that brings me to the best part of the V3, which is the price. Most tablets with this level of specs hover around the $1,200 to $1,600 US, but the V3 is being sold directly on the Minis Forum website for $1,099, and at the time of making this video with a $100 or $200 discount, depending on which version of the V3 you get. So this is a limited time deal. So the 32GB RAM model plus 1TB SSD comes down to $899 if you take advantage of this deal, which is very impressive when you consider all that you are getting. I'll put a link in the video description if you are interested in buying one. Like I said, it gets my full recommendation. I should note that Minis Forum will also be launching the V3S soon, which I don't think is available just yet, and which will be a lower spec version of the V3, so presumably even more affordable. Let me know if you'd like to see a review of that unit also once it's available. A big thanks to Minis Forum for providing this unit for review, and if you enjoy this review, consider subscribing to the channel, as there are more reviews coming as well as the usual semiconductor industry analysis videos. Thanks for watching, and until the next one.